Hello and welcome. Welcome to Forte's Unlocking Talent. I'm Amy Orlov, Director of Professional Programs. At Forte, our mission is to advance women in business through career education, community, and partnerships that help top-tier talent thrive and organizations grow. Across our network, spanning MBA programs, corporate and academic institutions, and the high-achieving women we support through career development and leadership programming, we see a consistent challenge. Women who stay committed to their careers but stall out on their path to senior leadership. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm joined by my colleague, Rachel Harrington. We also have some people behind the scenes, including our Vice President, Mariska Morse. You might see her participating in the chat in a little bit. Just to get us started, let me share that in our last session, we talked about why top talent is eyeing the exit. And today we're flipping that script. This time we're talking about why the future leaders who are staying are getting stuck. What's getting in their way, and how can you help unblock it?
Thanks, Amy. I'm Rachel Harrington, Director of Corporate Relationships at Forte. And today's session is really representative of the consultative work we do with our 50 plus leading company partners to help them recruit and retain top talent, across the college, MBA, and lateral career stages. We are passionate about supporting companies to access robust talent pools and encourage you to ask questions in the chat or the Q&A, or even to reach out afterwards and we can talk further. So let's get started. To start unpacking this, we'll look at data that you may have seen before from McKinsey, a Forte member, and Leaned In. And then we'll layer in Forte's own data, insights from over 1,000 MBA alumni about pay, scope, and satisfaction gaps. And finally, what good is data without ideas as to how to put it to use? So we'll dive into some strategies and tactics for using this information to recruit and retain your high potential talent. So here's the leadership funnel from the 2024 McKinsey's Women in the Workplace study. What you're seeing here on the horizontal is the talent pipeline, entry level to the C-suite. And in this case, it's broken down not just across women men lines, but also people of color. The entry level, women make up 48% of the roles. Manager, that share drops to 40%. Senior manager, director, down to 38%. Vice president, just 34% are women. Senior VP and C-suite, only about 29%. So what's happening? We're starting at near parity for new hires, but every promotion cycle, women are losing ground. And by the time you get to the C-suite, fewer than 3 in 10 leaders are women. This gradual leak in representation isn't about a single bad boss or one skippable stretch assignment. It's systemic, and it reflects the way performance gets defined at each level, often privileging styles that don't match how women lead. Who gets tapped for critical projects and high visibility roles? That cumulative impact of small biases in feedback, networking, and sponsorship. So if we don't shore up each rung of this funnel, we will never get more women into the senior roles that shape strategy and culture. So let's just zero in on that mid-funnel segment we just saw in McKinsey's chart. To understand what's happening at the manager, director, and early VP levels, we're going to look at Forte's career outcomes study. So in case you missed our last session or you need a refresher, our 2024 Career Outcomes Survey is research we run every 2 years to track alumni outcomes. And in our latest round, over 1,000 MBA alumni, which averages 35 years old and it's drawn from nearly 70 Forte member schools, shared their real world experiences. They work across every major industry and function. So this data gives us a clear window into the talent pool at those crucial middle rungs. And let me just say that tracking post MBA is really important because it's a moment when women and men have leveled the playing field with the MBA as a degree. So, in addition to exploring the impact of the MBA, it's also resetting the marker and allowing us to look at trends between men and women in that mid career and beyond. So, first, compensation. Even at the manager and director level, women are reporting earning about 10 to 12% less than their male counterparts in the same roles. And that gap is not just a number on a paycheck, it's translating into smaller raises and smaller bonuses and ultimately less investment in a woman's career over time.
Hey, Rachel, I just want to interrupt you here because you just talked about the fact that post MBA is where the playing field is level right from the start. If you look at our survey, we're actually even seeing women are slightly ahead when it comes to this metric.
That's right, absolutely. And yet they're still losing ground. It's really interesting to look at it that way. The next hurdle, moving up and leading teams. Women report a promotion rate roughly 15% below that of men in comparable positions. At the same time, they're supervising about 18% fewer direct reports on average. So, fewer promotions and smaller teams means fewer opportunities to stretch leadership muscles and build that track record you need to be noticed for the next best big role. Finally, scope of responsibility. Women in our survey oversee budgets that are about 15% smaller than their male peers. They also find themselves one level further from the C suite on average, limiting their visibility to the senior teams that are driving strategies. And these pay, promotion, and scope gaps, they're not abstract data. They're representing real people who are getting less experience and less visibility and ultimately not as many promotions. So let's explore what's causing these slowdowns. Amy, what have women told us about the barriers that are blocking their paths?
Yeah, because we've looked at the structural data that you shared, right? Gaps in compensation, promotion, scope, visibility. But we actually are asking the women directly, what barriers have you witnessed or experienced on the path to senior leadership? Women cited on average 3.2 obstacles, which was 14% more than men. That in itself is telling, but also here are the top 3 themes that rose to the surface. Number 1, there isn't a clear path up. More than half of the women said they lacked a formal career development process or plan. And as you can see, this isn't just a women's issue because both men at 56% and women at 53% cite the absence of a formal development process as their number one career hurdle. Without clear milestones, transparent criteria, everyone risks plateauing. Yet that mid-career stage remains especially critical for sustaining forward momentum. Number 2. Here you see the problem is more, I'm sorry, the barrier. I forgot to read out loud. The number 2 barrier was lack of sponsorship. And here we do see that the problem is more acutely felt by women. 42% of women reported that they don't have someone actively advocating for them, compared to just 31% of men. Without a sponsor, it's harder to gain access to high visibility roles, to strategic projects, and to the decision makers themselves. This barrier doesn't just block opportunity, it creates a real gap in visibility. We heard from our survey respondents that the number 3 barrier was confidence. 40% of women, 29% of men cite low confidence as a barrier. We see this confidence gap show up alongside the information we shared earlier. Measurable disparities in promotions, pay growth, and budget authority. While we can't say those numbers directly cause self-doubt, they clearly go hand in hand with it. Barriers 4 through 6, by the way, reveal other cultural headwinds that may be fueling the confidence gap. Leaders withholding encouragement, too few role models, women's experiences being undervalued. These gaps don't merely coexist with low confidence, they amplify and reinforce it. In fact, all of these barriers, including unclear advancement paths, lack of sponsorship, and confidence shaped by culture, don't exist in isolation. They interlock. And unless we address them head on, we're going to continue to lose momentum exactly where it's needed most. Rachel, I have good news. Each one is solvable. And up next, we'll talk about the levers that you can pull to shift these dynamics and impact not just retention numbers, but recruiting as well.
Yeah, that's great, Amy. And before you start, I do want to share that all of these strategies and levers that we're talking about they're grounded in the real world. These are some of the examples we're talking about with our companies when we're advising them on how they can be really strategic in retaining and recruiting these high potential women candidates.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because our first tip, if you will, is likely a resource that most on the line already have in place, which is your employee resource groups. And we got this information directly from the ERGs that we're working with, right? Now, ERGs are often seen as affinity spaces or social support systems, and they are, but they can also be something more strategic. They can be launch pads for leadership. Here's how your ERGs can directly address the barriers we talked about. First, ERGs can help demystify advancement. They can host panels with senior leaders. They can facilitate workshops on career pathing, and they could spotlight what growth actually looks like inside your company. That starts to counter the no clear roadmap issue that we saw. Number 2, ERGs can be a bridge to sponsorship. By creating intentional connections between senior leaders and emerging talent through mentoring programs, project pairings, or even reverse mentoring, ERGs can help women build the visibility and relationships that unlock opportunity. And finally, ERGs can actively build confidence, not just through encouragement, but through role modeling. When women see peers stepping into leadership roles, speaking on panels, leading initiatives, it rewires their sense of what's possible. ERGs are already your trusted spaces. Let's make sure they're also strategic spaces where careers get built and not just supported.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Amy. And there are lots of reasons why we put ERGs as our number one tip within this space. They are an incredibly reliable and in some cases untapped resource in your company. All of the companies that we work with, the ones that are most successful are the ones that are really strategically implementing their ERGs in retention, as Amy just went through, and also in recruiting. Here are 3 easy ways you can use your ERG to recruit ambitious top talent for women. First, ERGs bring ERGs bring the employee experience to life. These are role models where candidates see themselves and imagine themselves at your company. So use your ERG to host Q&As and virtual meet and greets or networking receptions with candidates. They can give that authentic picture of culture that resonates with prospective hires. Several of our Forté member companies use their ERGs to hold receptions around recruiting events. And it makes a really great impression on candidates. It energizes the ERG with engagement, and they have data that shows an increase of candidates into their pipeline after they started implementing that technique. That was number 1. Number 2, ERGs can really help you avoid that sort of transactional feel of interviews within the recruiting process. Pair an interview candidate or a recruiting candidate with an ERG member for one-on-one contacts. Maybe it's a coffee chat or a buddy system. You can bring the ERG through the whole recruiting process. Even at the onboarding session, how about an ERG-led onboarding process? All of these interactions are signaling you're going to have community here from day one. And those are the types of connections that this top talent has been telling us that they're missing. These are the types of moments that could really tip the scales in favor of your company. Third, ERGs can really help you source candidates. They can reach into untapped talent pools that you may not be connected with. These leaders in your ERGs have built incredible networks within the industry or function that you are looking for. So empower them to be part of the recruiting process right from the beginning. Have them share job opportunities and attend conferences with recruiting in mind. It's credibility because candidates are engaging with people that they can relate to from day one. Yeah, I have personally experienced this from a previous role. We had an open role on my team that HR was really struggling to fill. They wanted a really diverse pool of candidates. I was in a particularly male dominated industry at the time, and they reached out to the women's network and encouraged us to tap our personal networks. I took advantage of that opportunity. I asked a woman I was working on a deal with to have coffee with me. I told her about the role. I encouraged her to apply, and she got the job. It was great for her. It was a big step up. And honestly, it was great for me. I had that opportunity to really show my commitment and engagement with leadership, and it helped me really stand out. It was a win-win.
Yeah, Rachel, if we didn't underscore it enough for you all, your ERGs are an untapped resources. We are working more and more with ERGs at our partner companies. We are learning from them. We are sharing best practices. We have a monthly newsletter, ERGs in action, with an ERGs in action column. So just wanted to throw that out there because these really are your untapped resources. But I promised you that we had solutions to everything. We have more. We have more. Now, if ERGs can create community, your managers shape culture. For most employees, their managers are the experience of the workplace. Their managers are the ones who define performance expectation, who give or withhold stretch opportunities, who provide feedback, who open doors, who shape the confidence of their team members. But too often, your mid-level managers are asked to lead without being developed. They're navigating complex team dynamics, tight timelines, evolving expectations without the tools to grow others. So how do we help them lead better? First, train your managers to spot and support potential, not just performance. That means looking beyond who speaks up the most in meetings and recognizing that leadership in quieter forms, strategic thinking, influence, resilience is a great measure of who can perform on your team. Second, equip your managers with inclusive feedback tools. One conversation can shape an employee's ambition or completely shut it down. Help managers give feedback that build clarity and confidence. We actually worked with a partner company to help their managers become coaches, Rachel, and we really saw the impact at work there. Finally, make managers responsible for growth, not just output. That means tying team development to performance evaluations and rewarding those who advance diverse talent. When you invest in your managers, you build an engine for advancement that runs deep into your organization. And that's where the change happens.
That's great, Amy. Yeah. And I'll add on that, as you're investing in your managers, make sure you're telling all of your recruiting candidates as well. If women's careers are stalling in middle management, then they are more interested in companies that are addressing this challenge. So here are some ways that you can take advantage of your manager investment to maximize recruiting. First, market your company's solution to one of the biggest workplace frustrations, which is inconsistent or underdeveloped management. On your careers website, be really explicit. You could say, We don't just hire great people, we develop great managers to unleash the talent. Or when you join us, you're not just getting a new role, you're getting a manager who is invested in and accountable for your advancement. Making it really clear that this is something that you are aware of and are taking seriously is critical. Second, when you're coaching your managers, bring in the interview process as well. Coach them for that process to highlight the training and development that they have received, including in that their accountability and their employee growth. And third, give an example. Encourage the interviewers to provide feedback on the candidate interview in the same way that they would for an employee, and share that back with the candidate. I always am eager to hear how I might have done in an interview process or in the recruiting process. And this puts your money where your mouth is. It shows your commitment to growth. It doesn't just tell it.
Oh, I love that. It shows, it doesn't just tell. I love that. Um, so we talked a lot about advancement in our last session, but we're bringing it back again. Not because we enjoy repeating ourselves, although maybe we do, but because we can't underscore enough its importance. Advancement, it's a signal. It tells your talent they're seen, they're valued, they have a future at your organization. When that signal is missing or even just muddy, ambition fades. And that's what we're seeing in our data. More than half of the women in our survey said they lacked a formal career development process or plan. And that was the most cited barrier to leadership, not just for women, but across the board. But the impact of that ambiguity is greater for women. Why? Because it interacts with the other barriers that we talked about. Progress stalls when the path isn't clear and you don't have a sponsor advocating for you. Progress stalls when the path isn't clear and you're unsure whether your leadership style is valued. Progress stalls when the path isn't clear and you're already questioning your confidence. So, what can we do? What can you do? Codify what advancement looks like. Don't leave it up to interpretation. Define the skills, the milestones, and the experiences tied to each level. Make it transparent. Publish promotion criteria. Share real stories of advancement and encourage career conversations early and often. That's where that management training comes into play, and that's where your ERG can be a huge asset. Build consistency. Use development plans, stretch assignments, and feedback loops to keep progress visible. When organizations make advancement pathways clear and structured, it not only solves a structural problem, it helps boost confidence in employees who otherwise might second guess themselves due to a lack of direction. Because clarity doesn't just power leadership, it powers confidence.
Yeah, Amy, when you said at the beginning, it's not that we love to keep repeating ourselves about advancement. It's just that this is what we keep hearing about, right? All the women in our network are repeating themselves about advancement because these are the opportunities that, they want. This will impact pay. This will impact that distance from the CEO. And advancement clarity is not going to just help you retain your top leaders. It's also going to help you attract them. Bringing these programs and strategies directly into your recruiting materials and language is really valuable. And here's some examples. So you could say, you will know what success looks like here. We publish our promotion criteria, and here are some real advancement stories. Make it real and tangible for these candidates. Or we do not expect you to navigate your career in the dark. You will have access to structured development plans, meaningful stretch assignments, and regular feedback. Making it really explicit what the experience will be like at your company is going to be really valuable. You can frame this, your advancement work, as an empowerment tool rather than a support system. Show them how you treat leaders and you are proactive and sophisticated about talent development. senior leaders want to join companies that have already figured it out.
Yeah. Rachel, I just want to add one more thing because you keep talking about the transparency. And we've led inclusive leadership workshops for years and years. And one thing that we always encourage is that McKinsey funnel that you showed at the beginning. We always encourage companies recreate that within
Yeah.
your organization. Let people see not just the division of men and women, black and white, but what roles they're filling. So I wanted to say that. Now, I know that we're happy to take questions. We want to take questions. Um, and this is really it for our content for the day. But before we move on to those Q&A, I want you to mark your calendars because our next session is October 22nd. And we're going to tackle the topic that the HR blogs can't stop raving about, skills-based hiring. Let's come back right now to why our leaders are staying stuck and look for any questions in the chat or in the Q&A. I'm looking through the chat right now. Looks like Mariska's been very active. I told you all that she was going to be participating. Rachel,
Amy,
do you have, oh, go ahead.
now, I was going to ask you a question because you brought up the inclusive leadership program, which is part of our allyship curriculum.
Yeah,
And what I love so much about the allyship curriculum is that it's really for everyone. And I think it's so important as we look at our strategies to build really inclusive workplaces that it is inclusive. It is for all. And so, I had a question for you around some of these strategies. How can companies be using them in a way that really will allow them to build inclusive teams and buy-in from everyone? So it's not just about promoting women, but also about sort of building it for the whole company, men and women.
right. And first of all, I do want to say that anytime we offer inclusive leadership programs, they are open for everybody, right? Because because of intersectional identities, we all need to be allies for each other. That's just the world we live in. I also want to say that I think the reason I was so keen on getting managers in as the tip is not just because I'm hearing that from our companies, but because we've seen the impact of training your managers as allies. So for the longest time, we led allyship trainings, which were wonderful, and they helped individuals be better allies to other individuals in the workplace. But we realized that theory and practice are two very different things when you are leading a team of people. So we started introducing a manager allyship framework, and we really found that the more you can equip the leaders, the managers on your team to pay attention to signals. I talked about the look for quiet leadership, not just the person that's raising their hand, but there are so many other ways that you can encourage your managers to foster everybody's individual potential that we don't even think about. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, Rachel, but that's where my head went.
No, you really did, because I was trying to think about how we can be helping our attendees and other companies that we work with retention strategies that are really broad, right? That are not just focused on one group. And I think that really you really hit it there, and it makes me think of the recruiting strategies and advice that we give to the companies that we work with as well around how you can have broader approaches and not just focused on single groups, in moving it up. And that's really on partnering with organizations like Forté, because we can help broaden the talent pool. And
Absolutely.
these strategies will help you make sure that you have a broad talent pool to choose from as well when you're looking to make hires as well. And if the talent pool is broad, then your pipeline in will be broad, and that will help with your sort of nice representation inclusivity at the top as well.
100%. I'm glad to know that we've answered everybody's questions. Seriously, if you all do have questions, our contact information is up on the screen. Rachel and I love this topic. If you can't tell, I'm actually really excited about the skills-based hiring session next month as well. But we'd love to connect with you. So any questions, any thoughts, any concerns, please reach out to us, Amy at fortefoundation.org or Rachel at fortefoundation.org. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for being here. And thank you, Amy, for the great conversation.